Think about a situation in your life that keeps ending the same way. A relationship that follows a pattern you've seen before. A conversation that goes sideways at the same point every time. A moment where you hold back, even when you promised yourself you wouldn't. An opportunity that somehow never quite lands. You've probably wondered whether it's bad luck, or whether there's something about you that makes certain outcomes unavoidable. But what if neither of those explanations is right? What if the reason things keep ending the same way is much more precise and much more fixable than either luck or character? Here's what the research actually points to. Before any situation unfolds, your brain has already built a version of how it will go. Not a conscious prediction. Not a thought you chose to have. A background process, running automatically, below awareness, that shapes everything from how you enter a room to how you interpret a pause in a conversation to what you notice and what you miss. And here is the part that matters. That prediction doesn't just forecast the outcome. It helps create it. To understand how, you need to understand one thing about how the brain processes social situations. When you walk into any interaction, a conversation, a meeting, a first date, a difficult phone call, your brain doesn't start from scratch. It searches its existing patterns. It asks, have I been in something like this before? And whatever pattern feels most similar gets activated as a template. That template influences everything that follows. What your body does, how your voice sounds, what you focus on, what you say and what you don't, whether you lean in or pull back, whether you interpret a neutral expression as interest or indifference, whether a moment of silence feels comfortable or threatening. Here's the part most people miss, and it changes how you understand every pattern that keeps repeating in your life. Your prediction doesn't just sit in your head. It gets expressed through your behavior. And your behavior changes how other people respond to you, which produces an outcome that then confirms the prediction your brain started with. Neuroscientists and psychologists refer to this as a behavioral confirmation loop. You expect something, you behave in a way that is consistent with that expectation, and the world responds to your behavior, not to your intention. The outcome matches the prediction. And the brain logs it as evidence. See, this is how this goes. Let's make this concrete. Someone who carries the expectation that people will eventually lose interest in them doesn't usually behave in a way that makes them easy to stay interested in. They may pull back slightly before the other person does. They may test the connection in ways that create friction. They may interpret normal fluctuations in attention as confirmation that distance is coming. And slowly, through behavior driven entirely by an expectation rather than by reality, they can produce the very outcome they were afraid of. They weren't unlucky. Their brain was running a prediction, and then helping to make it true. This is where the brain does something that looks self-destructive but is actually logical. The brain's primary goal in any situation is not a good outcome. It is a predicted outcome. A predicted outcome, even a painful one, is less threatening than an unknown one. Because unpredictability requires enormous cognitive resources to manage. Certainty, even negative certainty, is efficient. And efficiency, for a brain managing thousands of processes simultaneously, matters more than you might expect. This is why people sometimes behave in ways that seem to guarantee the outcome they least want. It isn't masochism. It isn't a lack of self-awareness. It is the brain optimizing for predictability over possibility. And now it gets uncomfortable, because this means the patterns that repeat in your life are not random. They are being generated, partly by your history, partly by what that history taught your brain to expect, and partly by behavior that follows so naturally from that expectation that it never even registers as a choice. If you only remember one thing from this video, make it this. Your expectation is not passive. It is an active ingredient in the outcome you experience. This has been studied directly. Research on expectation and performance consistently shows that people who expect to do poorly perform worse, not only because they feel less confident, but because that expectation produces measurable changes in behavior, attention, and physiological response before the performance even begins. The brain prepares for the outcome it predicts, and preparation shapes execution. The same mechanism operates in relationships, in professional situations, in the way you approach risk, in how you handle moments of uncertainty. Whatever your brain has learned to expect in a given type of situation, it begins preparing for that outcome the moment the situation is recognized. And preparation is not neutral. Preparation changes what happens. Here is what makes this genuinely useful rather than just uncomfortable. If the prediction is generating the outcome, then changing the prediction changes what's possible. Not instantly. Not through positive thinking or telling yourself a new story, but through the same mechanism that built the original prediction in the first place, repeated experience that gives the brain new data to update from. The first step is noticing the prediction before it runs. This sounds simple and is actually quite difficult, because predictions that have operated for years run faster than conscious thought. They are activated and expressed before awareness arrives. You don't think, "I predict this will go badly." You just feel the tension in your chest, or hear the slight edge in your voice, or notice yourself preparing for a disappointment that hasn't happened yet. That noticing, that moment of catching the prediction in the act, is the point where something can change. Not because awareness alone rewires anything, but because awareness creates a gap. A small delay between the prediction firing and the behavior that usually follows it. And in that gap, a different response becomes possible. The second step is deliberately introducing a different behavior, even a small one, into a situation where the old prediction would normally run unchallenged. Not a dramatic overhaul. One small deviation from the script. A question instead of a withdrawal. Staying in a conversation a moment longer than usual. Letting a pause be comfortable instead of filling it with reassurance. Each of these small deviations does two things. It produces a slightly different outcome than the prediction expected. And it gives the brain a new data point, a small piece of evidence that the old prediction is not the only way this can go. Over time, with enough repetition, the brain updates its template. The prediction begins to shift. And when the prediction shifts, the behavior shifts. And when the behavior shifts, the outcomes start to look different. Not because the world changed, because the brain stopped generating the same ending. This is not a quick process. Predictions that have been reinforced over years don't dissolve in a week. But they are not permanent. They are estimates, the brain's best guess based on the evidence it has accumulated so far. And estimates can be revised when new evidence makes the old one less reliable. Your brain is not writing your future. It is predicting it based on your past. And predictions, unlike the past, can change. If this made you see a repeating pattern in your own life differently, like the video so this kind of mechanism-based content reaches more people. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring how the brain quietly shapes the outcomes you experience, and share it with someone who keeps wondering why the same things keep happening to them.